What if my spouse won't agree to the divorce? When you file for divorce and you're going through the process, so maybe the other side is served with the paperwork and maybe somebody's filed a counter petition, you've gone through the pleadings part of it. So you've moved through that stage and now you're on to mediation, right? And you're trucking along, you're moving through the case, and you're approaching that point where you can see some light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe you're going to get to a resolution at mediation. I will say that most cases you settle at some point. Some cases settle before they even file, and we do a lot of that with our uncontested cases. We will settle and have a full settlement agreement prior to even filing the case. And then when you file it, it's filed with the settlement agreement and everything that's necessary for the court to finalize it, and just a quick, easy hearing to have it done with. That's a completely uncontested divorce. So I'm talking about from the contested divorce side of things. There's two requirements in Florida of what you need to get a divorce, and that's the residency requirement and that the marriage is irretrievably broken. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about all the other stuff, because usually, some cases fight over that specific part of it, maybe a jurisdictional issue, maybe somebody doesn't feel that the marriage is irretrievably broken. But that's a very small percentage of it. Most of the fight has to do with the children, custody, child support, alimony, or if there's relocation of the children, that one's really fought over. The various forms of alimony, especially permanent alimony, distribution of assets, debts, businesses, professional practices, liabilities, larger amounts of credit card debt, loans, who's going to pay attorney's fees, all those different types of issues. That's usually where, the issues come in, somewhere in those different spectrums. So if your spouse won't agree to one of those, then you have a contested divorce. So if it started off uncontested, where you think everything's going to be agreed upon, and a lot of times, if people are on the same page, they find a way to get to the compromise point. But it's got to be, as they teach us in law school, there's got to be a meeting of the minds, right? In order to come to a contract, it's got to be a meeting of the minds. But if there is no meeting of the minds, and the other side has a different idea of how they want to approach it, then you have a contested divorce. So what happens at that point? So if you get to mediation and nothing comes out of it, where do you go from here? So, the next steps are trial, is getting yourself ready for a final litigation of the case and a final judgment by the judge. So the judge is there to make the decision. The judge is there to decide if you cannot. I will say normally they would prefer that parents make the decision for their own children, because the judges, and I can't count how many times I've heard it, and other divorce lawyers in Florida have heard it, they're strangers. They're not, the children are not theirs. So they would prefer for you as the parents to make the decision yourselves for your children. You love them, more than anybody else. So if you make that decision for them, they would greatly appreciate you to be able to do that. But if you cannot, they will make that decision for you. Now, distribution of assets, liabilities, alimony, child support, attorney's fees, all that's a calculator, right? To calculate that, they use what the statute says and the case law, which directs them, and they use that. So they're more comfortable. I think anybody would be more comfortable with that than having to decide, okay, which parent, okay, do I believe this person, this witness was, it's a very, child custody determinations are more complicated from that. Now, I'm not saying that some permanent alimony cases and distribution of very complex cases and, partnership interests and things of that nature, and valuation issues, tracing, hundreds of thousands of dollars dissipated during the course of a marriage on a mistress, those are not easy issues for any judge, but they'll do it. They'll figure it out, and they'll do it on the side of the child custody as well. So they will decide it for you. So if you cannot agree, then that's your next step. So if the question is, what do I do if my spouse won't agree? Well, you let the judge decide. The biggest issue that I see a lot of times that comes up is people believe a lot of times that they can do, especially these complex contested custody cases and contested, division cases and alimony cases, they feel like they can do it themselves. I'm not going to take out my own appendix. I'm barely even going to be able to, no, I'm not going to be able to put an addition onto my house, okay? It would fall down. I mean, the floor would fall. It would look ridiculous. My kids would make fun of me. I mean, the neighbors would call, code enforcement on me, because that's not what I do. I do divorce. I'm a Florida divorce and family law attorney. William S. Foley. I practice only divorce in Florida. That's all I do. Basically, if somebody will not agree in Florida, you have those next steps of going towards trial. The courts understand that there are other things that have to happen before trial. A lot of times that's why there's pretrial conferences, there's discovery, there's all these different things. And then there's also creative approaches to any of these cases. There's custody evaluators, there's psychological evaluations, there's guardian ad litems that can be appointed, there's forensic CPAs that can get involved. There's also collaborative divorce options that, even in the middle of divorce, we've seen it where they, put the brakes on it and go the collaborative divorce route. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There's a lot of different ways to deal with it. So again, I'm a Florida divorce lawyer. This is what I do. This is how we do things in Florida as far as, I can't say what everybody's going to do all around the state or how any judge is going to do it. But again, if somebody on the other side is not agreeing, if your spouse is not agreeing to the divorce, my suggestion is, to get an attorney, to help you to get to that next phase of it, to help you get through, where you're at right now. Because clearly, if you're watching this video, you have questions. And again, we have other videos, on this channel, about, the beginning parts of it. But this is for, after somebody's filed and you've been served with the divorce papers and you're trying to figure out, okay, now where do I go? Where do I go from here? We understand the pain that's involved and we're not living it with you, but we're trying to help you through it. We understand it is a painful process. And a divorce lawyer can help you get from, point A to point B. And that's some type of resolution, and that's getting through it. If you're going in there cold to a trial, and especially if the other side has an attorney and you're just going to go in there and wing it, and then you'll be like, well, I'll just fix it later. Sure. Modifications are not easy. The burden is extraordinary. It's actually what it is. It's an extraordinary burden. There has to be extraordinary change in circumstances, substantial since the time of the final judgment. So, we make sure that people understand that, number one, get it right the first time. Get yourself some help to get through this process. Because to just say, well, I can fix it later, I'll be able to figure it out, or I really don't want to get into too much credit card debt or whatever. I mean, again, trying to fix something that's broken is way more expensive than doing it correctly the first time. So, as part of this series, the first video of, what to do when you're served. And then the next side of it is, what if you can't come to an agreement? Speak with an attorney, get good legal advice, understand the process, understand your options and creative solutions available to you. There's a lot out there. The law and the case law affords people a lot of different options that they can use and they can have available to them throughout the process. So that's my suggestion, and thank you for watching.